Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Extra Point episode 9. Great to be back again talking about the NFL and the NCAA. Once again, I'm your host, Roland Rainey, CEO of R2 Sports Management, and I am joined by some phenomenal football scouts here with me today, as always. Starting out in Indiana, we got Jeremy Coleman. Jeremy, how's your day going?
It's going great, Roland. Right here talking football.
Hey, that's it. That's what we do, right? Okay, and Robert Parker coming out of New Jersey. How we doing today, Rob? You there, Rob? I can see you. I can hear you. I got no voice. All right, we'll see if we can get Robert's voice going there, audio going. And coming once again out of the great state of New York is Justice Gordon. How we doing today, Justice?
Doing great, man. Excited to be back with you guys.
Hey, man, I was looking forward to this week because it has been nothing but news in the NFL and the NCAA recently. We have the Big Ten, we have the Mountain West, we have the Pac. I mean, the list is going on and on and on. And I really want to dive into this right now. What are your guys' take? Do you think this is the trickle down effect of no college football this season? What do you think, Jeremy?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not surprised. I feel like we kind of all knew this was coming. Like you said, kind of a trickle down effect here. I am a little disappointed, though, in the Big Ten canceling. Literally, like 2 days after they released their revised conference schedule, I didn't really see what the point in the matter was of releasing a schedule if just a few days later you were going to turn around and cancel the season. Kind of the same goes for the Pac-12. Disappointed, obviously, that we're not going to be able to have these guys out on the football field this year. I think they should have at least made a go at it rather than just kind of folding and running and turning tail. I understand the decision behind it. I would have liked to have seen the Big Ten, play this fall, especially since conferences like the SEC and the ACC still plan on playing. I think it looks bad, sort of, that some football players will get a chance to play this fall, others will not. So it's all a matter of opinion, though. So I'm disappointed, obviously, but I understand their decision.
So, that's interesting point, Jeremy. And over to you, Justice, on this one. What I find interesting is it would have been nice if the NCAA as a collective whole would have made a decision, right? But, you got some conferences that are deciding that they're going to press on. How do you think that's actually going to work out? Especially when you talk about determining a national champion or even a conference champion. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, well, obviously, with a few conferences, opting out of the season, no matter who wins the national championship, this is always going to be stapled next to their names. 2020, it's just been a crazy year. So, this is always going to be carried with whoever the 2021 champions are. But, obviously, as a scout and as a football fan, I'm disappointed to see, two conferences back out so far. But as a person who's been critical towards the NCAA as I have, I want to take this opportunity, to applaud the NCAA, for taking the lead and putting these players' health, protecting these players' health. It's a big issue. A lot of people, have an opinion about this. They wanted to see the players themselves have a voice in this, but this decision, it's a big one. I think it's the right choice by the NCAA. A lot of people are confused by this, and I kind of want to highlight something. Um, a lot of people probably don't know this, but people just don't contract COVID-19, and if they beat it out, it's gone forever. There is a symptom that comes along with COVID-19. I'm blanking on the name right now, but basically what it is it's a heart condition that stems from COVID-19 that basically it creates heart disease and in some cases can create cardiac arrest. I've read multiple reports on this, and already 5 players in the Big Ten have already tested positive, have already come down with this disease after having COVID-19. So it's a very serious issue. I applaud the NCAA of stepping in and taking control of this, but it's obviously sad to see 2 conferences shut down like this.
Yeah, I hear you, Justice, and I concur with the notion that, hey, the NCAA is definitely taking a great step forward. I truly believe that, probably all the other conferences should fall in line, follow suit. And, to your point, let's chuck up 2020 for what it is. Let's try to take care of the health of the players, and then let's resume next season. I want to take the opportunity here right now on the Extra Point is to invite in a special guest. We have Courtney Bunches coming in from Detroit, right, Courtney?
Yes, I am in Detroit right now.
All righty. So I actually had the pleasure of meeting Courtney at Lee Steinberg Sports Agent Conference. And I know she is aspiring to be a sports agent. Also, she has some background working with the New Orleans Saints in communications, also with the New Orleans Pelicans. So welcome to the show, Courtney. We are happy to have you. You got to mix it up once in a while. It's great to have a female actually on this show and get that perspective, right? So one of the topics that we were getting ready to dive into, Courtney, is recently Deion Sanders came out and had a very, very strong statement. And since Jeremy, I know he has the quote written out, I'll go ahead and hand this over to Jeremy. Have him read the quote verbatim. And Courtney, we'll hand it off to you and give us your take on it.
Okay.
I had to pick up my phone here real quick. All right, so he said, all players opting out in all sports, please believe the game will go on without you. This is a business, and don't you ever forget that. There's no one that's bigger than the game itself. Only the refs, umps, and officials are that important that you can't play without them. Not you, #truth.
What do you think, Courtney? Is that truth or not?
Well, first, I want to thank you guys for having me. Really appreciate even being considered to be here. I actually saw Deion's tweet earlier this week, and I had a very interesting reaction. For me personally, I think that this isn't something to take lightly. I think the pandemic itself is kind of like, okay, we need to assess things differently than we would. And coming from a communications background, working in PR for both the Saints and the Pelicans is kind of like my publicist hat was put on. I was also affected by COVID, myself and my family included. I tested positive. I didn't have any symptoms, thankfully, but both of my grandparents, my grandfather and my grandmother on my mother's side, were both severely affected by it. They were both on ventilators to a point. And I think that it's kind of like, hey, Deion, read the room, because that's not a take that is necessary right now. If you guys didn't know, my brother is Devin Funchess. He opted out for this season. So I think that with any decision that the guys have to make, they assess them, on all cylinders. And I think that it's not an easy decision. You have to think about your teammates' health. You have to think about your health. You have to think about the health of those that are in your home. And to Deion's point, you do have to think about your future, but I think that it's a time and a place for everything. And I think that his tweet was just very insensitive, and it just wasn't the time for that.
So Robert, to Courtney's point, Deion, Hall of Famer, the guy is about as legit as they come when it comes to playing on the field. Of course, he's known to be very vocal at times, but something he highlighted, and I'm very much wondering from your perspective, do you believe right now, especially in the state of the pandemic and the way the players are seeing this, is the institute bigger than the players right now? Or is this a moment where the institute should say player priority, health and safety is number one, and that should be our focus? What's your thoughts on that?
Are you muted?
I think you're muted, Robert. Oh, man. Robert dropped. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to toss that question over to Justice.
Yeah, excuse my language, but I thought Deion's comments were pretty asinine and irresponsible, if you ask me. I mean, to take a shot at the players for protecting themselves and their families, it just doesn't make any sense to me. I didn't like it at all. I mean, who is he to insult someone for, protecting their health? I mean, this what's going on right now, it's bigger than the game. This is bigger than football. These athletes, they make more money than we can ever dream of. They're comfortable. They don't need the money. I mean, this is a time to, protect yourself, protect your family. I mean, I've stayed on the stands from day one. I will never go at a player for backing out or opting out of the year. That's your choice. You just got to protect yourself in these type of times.
So,
can I also
Courtney,
say something?
Go ahead.
So, Jeremy, you mentioned that he also said something about the umpires and the referees. There have been several officials that have also opted out. I can't remember where I sourced that from, but it's not just the players. And I think that, again, with the publicist experience that I had, it's just like some things are just better left unsaid.
Well, as I said earlier, Deion has a history of being boisterous at times. And I get what he's saying, right? Everyone would love for the season to carry forth. Everyone would love to see football this year. Everyone believes, I won't say everyone, but there's a fair amount of individuals that believe there's enough parameters put in place to ensure the health and safety of the fans entering a stadium. And much like the NBA, maybe there are parameters put in place where a lot of the players and staff members on the sideline can help protect themselves. But I think at this moment, the one thing that, whether it's a sports or regular business, the moment you tell an employee, my business is more important than your health and safety, it's never going to go over well. And you're probably going to lose a lot of folks. So it is a little slightly ironic. He ended up leaving the network shortly thereafter, but his contract was up. So we'll leave that as that. His contract was up. So, he's happily departed, and he's probably going to be pursuing employment elsewhere. But I do believe, and I do agree with all of you, there's a time and place for it. Courtney, you mentioned that your brother opted out. Have you spoken to him about his feelings regarding the decision he made?
I think well, yes. But like I said, I think it's personal, to have several family members in the hospital. literally fighting for their lives. I think that, you know, as he mentioned in his public statement, like it's about family is number one. And it was a decision that wasn't easy to make. Like he just got to the Green Bay and he's not going to be able to play. And this comes after sitting out last season. So that's 2 seasons where he's out. So, you know, I think with a lot of players and just players in general, athletes in general, you have to start thinking about some of the off the field things that you have going on, whether it's family, second career, some of the other avenues that you're interested in. So I think this time for him and for those that have opted out will be a great time for some self-exploration.
Hey, that's a great point. It really is. Now, for you specifically, now you and I, we've chatted back and forth, especially about becoming an NFL agent, the test. From your perspective, how do you think, you know, the players opting out, especially in the NCAA now, you got players opting out. You know, how is this going to affect agents? How is it going to affect scouts? What's your thoughts on that?
I think that going forward, not only do the players themselves have to be a little bit more creative, I think that scouts and agents have to also be a little bit more creative. Thinking back to this past combine, after the combine was said and done and some of the guys' pro days got canceled, I think that at that point we should have been more forward thinking, and at that point should have started thinking back then, like, all right, like, so when next year rolls around, how can we put ourselves in a better position, and how can we help those prospective athletes get to the next level? Because it isn't just about us getting clients, it's also about giving them the opportunity to showcase their talent. So I think that it comes with one, being proactive and making a plan, but also just being very creative and figuring out how to make this a successful task going forward. Like, this is going to be our new normal, and we have to accept it as is, but also do our very best to be both efficient and effective.
Hey, I hear you there. Great breakdown. Now, once again, my fellow colleagues that are on, Jeremy and Justice, we both have spent a lot of time with each other. We were both, all of us were down at the East-West Shrine Bowl, working and representing our lads, NFL scouting. So I want to open it up to them for any questions that you may have for Courtney.
Oh, great.
Jeremy, you want to go?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start off here. So with these, a few of these college players that have already started to opt out, you know, they all pretty much have round one grades. They basically have just declared super early compared to when juniors and underclassmen would kind of declare. As an aspiring agent, how do you think that kind of changes how those guys are recruited to agencies, since they are, you know, proactively way far ahead of the game here as far as declaring for the NFL?
I mean, my question is, are they way far ahead? I mean, they have tape from last season, but again, have they been active? Are they working out? Like, are they in football shape? I think it because we don't know what draft is going to look like next year. You know what I mean? So I think that everybody is honestly on the same playing field right now. For those juniors going into this season that would have declared after the season, I think they are the most vulnerable right now. I mean, and seniors too, but those juniors, they don't have a lot of experience. They've had maybe maybe 2 seasons, you know, like if they didn't redshirt and have a great season last year. But I think that, again, creativity is important right now. Being able to efficiently and effectively use social media, technology to their advantage. I think that because social media has been, you know, very prominent in our generation right now, but I think that they've been able to kind of figure that out, but using that to their advantage. I think that a lot of scouts and agents are now on social media, and that's how they find most of their clients now. So just putting themselves out there and being more visible. But again, I'm the agent, or I will be the agent that is stressing the importance of discovering and developing the off the field aspects. You want an all around, well rounded athlete. If they've been not only working out, but also trying to figure out how to make the community a better place, given what's going on, I'm looking for that guy. So I think that everybody is on the same playing field right now, honestly. And I guess we'll see what happens.
All righty. Justice, what do you have for Courtney?
Yeah, to kind of comment on that, I would definitely like to see the NFL, raise the number of team visits players are allowed to have, since they did shut down those conferences. I know they're limited to like 30 or something like that. I would definitely like to see them raise that to let these teams get a better look at these players. But if I'm not mistaken, your brother Devin, he signed a 1-year deal with the Packers. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So to basically clear up for some people who may not know, that because he did opt out before the season, that contract transfers to next year, and he will be with the Packers next year, right?
It depends. It really just depends. I think that because how some of the opt-outs are going, like it's either you get an accrued season or you don't. So it kind of just depends on whatever those stipulations are. I'm not into the business of that. Like, I don't know what that looks like for him. So I'm not sure if he was granted an accrued season or not, but it kind of just depends on how they deemed his opt-out.
Justice, so from my understanding on that, we actually kind of talked a little bit about that a few episodes ago. So from my understanding, Courtney, because by opting out, he will actually not get an accrued season, but what that will actually do, it will allow his contract to toll to next season. So theoretically, really? From my understanding of the when the NFLPA released their opt-out memorandum, his contract will toll to next year. So technically, he will be a Green Bay Packer next year if Green Bay still wants him there. But that was just from my understanding.
Okay, well, news to me, because I feel like the NFLPA and the NFL have been going back and forth and trying to figure out what they're going to do. The last time I talked to one of my agent friends, they were still trying to figure out how they were going to do that. And that was probably around the end of July. So I'm not really sure on updates on that. Like I said, I think that they're still trying to figure out what's really going on.
Sure.
So I'm not sure if they're, if that's actually going to happen or not, but learned something new today.
Well, I tell you, everything that you're saying, Courtney, and to Justice and Jeremy, thank you for the questions. A couple of weeks ago, we had Selwyn on, and don't know if you remember Selwyn from the Agent Academy. And we really were talking about the Patrick Mahomes contract, but in the midst of the conversation, we also talked about how they, as an agency, are getting around the current environment. So to your very point, there is a lot of social media engagements. There's a lot of Zoom chats. There is a lot of getting with players in very unorthodox manner, to say the least, so they can actually get this accomplished. So I think it's very interesting times that we are in. And to your very point, it's the new norm right now. So we got to get used to it.
Yeah.
So I'll leave you, Courtney. Before we let you go, anything else you want to pass along out there to the fans at the Extra Point?
I'm sorry, I missed the last part.
I just want to tell you thank you for being on, but I want to leave you with a last word. What would you like to pass along to any of the fans here at the Extra Point?
Well, thank you so much again for having me, giving me this opportunity. I'm like, what? You want my opinion? So I think that's pretty cool. Thank you for advocating for women in sports. I think that's very important. And if anybody's out there listening and is a woman in sport, I can be found on Instagram at Courtney Bianca, on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Myself and Roland always contact each other on there and kind of communicate via LinkedIn. I think that's important. But I just say for everybody out there, just stay strong. Continue to get or try to be in a great mental space. I think that's important, focusing on your mental health, especially right now. Lean on those that, are in your family or in your circle, and we'll get through this. Sports will be back soon, hopefully, but safely, most importantly. But again, thank you guys for having me.
Hey, we are beyond excited to have you on, and you are always welcome on here at the Extra Point as a guest. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, that is Courtney Funchess, and hey, we all learned something today. Her brother is Devin, and he is a Green Bay Packer. But once again, due to COVID, he has also determined to opt out. And once again, people are making some decisions that benefit them and their family, their health, safety, and security. Courtney, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next go around. All right, Courtney?
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
All righty. That was pretty awesome. Courtney Funchess, everyone, up and coming female agent in the business. Also did communications with the New Orleans Saints and the New Orleans Pelicans. And of course, her brother Devin, who is a Green Bay Packer. Great information to know and learn about that relationship. And once again, some of the decisions that he had to make with his decision to opt out. Once again, you are joining the Extra Point. I'm your host, Roland Rainey, CEO of R2 Sports Management, and I'm joined today with Jeremy and Justice. I believe our other colleague had some technical difficulties, so we have temporarily lost him, and that is Robert out of New Jersey. So I want to take this opportunity to do something that we haven't done much of. We've talked about the big name quarterbacks and the big contracts. We've talked about running backs. We've talked about linebackers and edge rushers. We've talked about cornerbacks. We haven't talked about the guys who are, to me, like the unsung heroes, right? And that is our offensive linemen. That's right. On the Extra Point offensive linemen out there, you are going to get much love today because we're going to talk about you all and who are some of the best linemen in the business right now. So I'm going to kick this off to Justice. Justice, give me your best two offensive linemen in the league right now.
Well, I think this is going to be an interesting topic. I think a lot of people are going to vary on this, but I'd have to say my top tackle is Mitchell Schwartz of the Kansas City Chiefs. A lot of people don't really know who he is. They don't really give him the recognition he deserves, but if you wanna look at a guy with, flawless footwork, flawless hand technique, he's the guy. He's a big part of what Patrick Mahomes does. He keeps him upright. I believe he was a second round pick in the 2012 draft by the Cleveland Browns, which is a big loss for them. But they found their franchise left tackle in Jedrick Willis, so they're going to be just fine. But yeah, I think he's number one for me. Number two, I'd have to put that beast Tyron Smith from the Cowboys. You you talk about a physical freak. I'm not sure exactly what his height is. I think it's like 6'7", like 325, something like that. He was the ninth pick in the 2011 draft. I mean, this guy is an absolute freak. He moves like a defensive end. He's got probably the longest limbs of any tackle in the league. I remember one game where he was having a problem with his arm, and they had to put a knee brace on his arm. There was no arm braces big enough for his arm, so they had to use a knee brace. Like that's insane to me. He does a great job protecting Dak. He's been there for a while, so I would definitely put him at the second spot.
Okay, that's two great picks. The one thing about Tyron, it's almost you kind of take the good with the bad with the good, I should say, and that's because oftentimes because of his kickback and his willingness to want to do that off the hurry snap, he gets a lot of false starts. So, but what he did that was pretty unique last year? How many sacks did he actually give up? Only 4. Only 4. That is unheard of. To your point, the guy is just a massive beast.
Massive. It's crazy.
So that's an awesome pick. All right, Jeremy from Indiana. Who we got as your top 2 offensive linemen?
Well, I'm glad we said offensive lineman because I think the best offensive lineman in the NFL is right here in Indianapolis, and his name is Quentin Nelson.
Ah, okay.
Talk about a guy who, is a generational type of guard prospect. When he came out, people were talking about a guard going top 5. Are you guys crazy? Who would ever think an offensive guard would go that high? Sure enough, he falls just outside the top 5 perfectly into the Indianapolis Colts lap. And he's been an all-pro ever since he stepped on the field. He has dominated everyone he has gone up against. And for some stats for you, he allowed 0 sacks this past year and only committed 3 penalties all year. He had 3 holding calls all year long. That's stellar. And
that's almost unheard of for a lineman. That is almost unheard of.
Yeah. But just his whole demeanor, he is a bully out on that field. No one gets the better of that man. He just unmatched when it comes to guard. With everything he offers in the run game, he's a great pass protector. I think he's the top guard in all of football, if not
Absolutely.
the top offensive lineman in the game right now. Because he's so young and so dominant, he should be that way for a long time. I'm also going to go with another former Notre Dame player as my second guy, as Ronnie Stanley, the offensive tackle for the Baltimore Ravens. Talk about another guy who's really come into his own. When he first started as a rookie, he had a few rough patches, but last year, again, a stat that I think rings out of anything, 0 sacks given up. Not to mention he's keeping Lamar Jackson upright all season long for one of the most historic seasons by a quarterback in the NFL with his dual threat ability. And then he's also been able to run block. He can do it all. And the fact that he's so young, he's just he's going to be a top guy for a long time. That's what I really considered when I'm coming up with my best 2 guys. Both of these guys are young. They're both still on their rookie contracts, and they won't be for much longer if they continue to play the way they're going to continue to play.
Wow, those are some great names there. I actually love this. I love how this is going. So I'm going to see if I can add to the list. For me, my number 1 is Zach Martin. Zach with the Dallas Cowboys. We often use that term and we throw it around, blue collar worker. He's kind of like that blue collar offensive lineman. When you meet him, when you look at his technique, when you put that front leg out, which is called that post leg, he sticks that post in there. His back leg is framed up correctly. His hips are centered all the time, and he has a ruthless punch when he comes off. I mean, the guy gets it done. He did it when he was at Notre Dame, Pro Bowler. And when you look at Dak and how Dak is able to still use his feet outside the pocket, but I think what people really forget sometimes is how Dak is effective inside the pocket, and it's because of people like Zach. Zach is a blue collar offensive lineman that kind of gets in the trenches. He does all the dirty work in the trenches, and just absolutely phenomenal. And like I said, his technique is just phenomenal. And I know I love an offensive lineman who has that initial punch, to stop a defensive lineman right out of the gate. And this guy has it. My other one is a pretty interesting one, and that is Richie Incognito. Richie is with Vegas right now, or the whatever they want to call themselves, the Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders. The one thing about Richie that I like is his ability to move within the line. One of the biggest things with a lineman is, having that ability to pull when necessary. And it's not just pull to fill a gap, but pulling, getting into the gap and pushing the gap at the same time. That's what Richie brings to the game for me. Also, one of the things he does is he stays on his individual. A lot of guys get that initial punch and then they kind of on their heels, and now they're kind of fighting and scrambling. When Richie gets in there and he's, in that body frame work that we call the kitchen, when he's in that area, it's really hard for you to get out. Now, the one thing that I won't call it criticism. The one thing I would say about him, I think he hasn't had the opportunity to really solidify himself with an organization. He's kind of bounced around a little bit, right? So with the Dolphins, with the Bills, it would be nice to see him just stay with an organization, have, finish out his career there, and really solidify himself as a true potential Hall of Famer in the future. But he has to stay put. He has to keep building on those techniques and be that veteran lineman that a lot of teams need, right? A lot of teams need that veteran lineman to step up, take charge, and truly lead the efforts in the trenches. I think he has that ability, but sometimes, he can kind of, pull back from being that leader that I think he could be on the line. So those are my two, Zach Martin and Richie Incognito. All right, so we're at that point in the segment, and thanks to Jeremy, we're going to change this up on this episode. So this episode, we usually at this point talk about leaving the last word. So we're going to go with something a little bit different moving forward, and we're going to call this Going for Two. So, Jeremy, going for two. Talk to me. What's on your mind?
Well, I want to kind of get back to the opt-out thing at the NCAA level. I'd say the biggest thing that this younger generation wants is they want a voice that's respected and heard. And I think, these conferences and even the NFL to some extent, that I think now is the best time to give them that voice. These conferences have made the decision to cancel football, where you see across the nation, these football players in college have come out and said, we want to play football. I think this would have been a great time to finally gauge the interest of the players and the coaches on whether they want to play. I'm tired of the bureaucrats making the decision from the 14th floor up in Chicago or wherever the offices are, or even the university presidents, who don't always necessarily have a lot invested in athletics, making that decision. I would have liked to have seen the players' vote kind of take account and the coaches' vote kind of take account. Because at the end of the day, this is their lives we're impacting. And we see it all the time with people making decisions on kind of over other people's lives. I think you got to give the people whose lives are kind of on the line in this situation ownership in this situation and allow them to make the decision for themselves.
Hey, Jeremy, to that point, there was a player recently, a collegiate player, who made this statement. And the statement was along the lines of, I am, as a student, being told I need to go to class and I need to be a part of the campus environment as a student, but yet I can't be a part of the football team and the season is going to be canceled. The reason why I bring that up is because what I've noticed, not just in sports, globally, but specifically to our nation, there is a lot of, I'm going to go ahead and say it here on the extra point, hypocritical decision making. On one hand, I'm going to hold everyone to a policy. On the other hand, I'm going to attend specific fundraisers or political events or maybe even a sporting event where I'm around a group of folks. Dr. Fauci just did it, right? He threw out the first pitch for the Washington Nationals. He was sitting in the stands with some folks. At one point, had his mask off while he was sitting next to a group of individuals. So when you see something like that, do you think a player who makes a comment like this has a legitimate stance?
Well, yeah, I do think so. I mean, and for Dr. Fauci to do that, that is kind of two-faced, It just kind of shows, again, that at the end of the day, it's all about the money, unfortunately, when it comes to certain situations. And especially this year in an election year, everyone's trying to put themselves in the best places going forward. So I think he came out and made his decision, for not for political purposes, but it's definitely put him in a nice position for the future. But then to go out to the Washington game, like you said, and throw a pitch and then be so cavalier about wearing the mask and congregating, that just kind of shows you that there is, a little bit of two-sidedness to every situation.
I hear you there. All right, Justice, over to you for the extra 2 points, right? Is that what we're calling it here, Jeremy? The extra 2?
Now we're going for 2.
Go for 2.
Let's go for 2. Let's go for 2, Justice.
Well, I want to make 2 quick points. I definitely want to hit on what Jeremy just said. My first point, though, is for the offensive line rankings, I was kind of focusing on the top 2 tackles. But if we're talking about the best O-lineman in football, it's Quentin Nelson. I mean, what this guy does, it's unbelievable. I mean, when he came out of Notre Dame, he was the highest graded player I've ever seen. Like he's that good. If you want to talk about a lineman who could do it all, that's Quentin Nelson. But to circle back to the NCAA, I get what you guys are saying. This definitely impacts the lives of the players more. I think Joe Burrow said it best. If last year this had happened, he would be looking for work right now. He wouldn't have a job. And I think that speaks volumes. But I also want to highlight, the difference between the NFL and the NCAA is, Roger Goodell, all they have to do is look out for all they're looking after is the teams, really. The players, they're supposed to go to practice, go to games and then go home, quarantine, and, stay away from everybody else. But the NCAA and these universities, they have to look out for the students too. After these kids play, they got to go to class the next day, and a whole other group of people are subjected to the what possibly could be COVID-19. So I do understand that players definitely should be heard, but I do think, the Big Ten and the Pac-12, they took the safe route, and I'm not gonna knock them for it. They have a whole student body to look after. They in some of these areas they've already had high spikes of the COVID-19. So I understand both sides, but I do commend the NCAA for taking the safe route on this one.
I definitely hear you there, and man, there's just so many variables, and I think there's so much to learn from what is going on now, and hopefully a lot of lessons learned can be carried forward in the future in case we encounter another pandemic or even some other type of natural disaster that will affect the sporting business. Hopefully, there's some lessons learned from this, especially from a communication standpoint. And to Jeremy's point, it would be nice if the players had maybe some type of players' council where they can represent the players and have this type of conversation with each other and get a really good understanding of some of the dynamics, right? Hey, if I'm a single guy and I'm living it up, maybe I'm not as concerned with COVID. But maybe if I have a wife, if I have a pregnant wife at home getting ready to have a child, that those things change the dynamics, and my decision making changes. So I think that's something that going back to Dion, that comment about the institute or the game is bigger than you. This is one time where I am bigger than the game. My family is bigger than the game. The health and safety of my newborn child is bigger than the game. So once again, misplaced words at a pretty sensitive time. Hopefully he understands why he's getting some of the back flack that he's catching right now. But once again, all in context, and hopefully he learns from that. So once again, I want to thank all of you for listening in to the Extra Point today. Want to send another special shout out to Courtney Funches, our special guest who was on today. Thanks for sharing your knowledge and your expertise, giving us a little insight to some of your family dynamics with your brother Devin, who's up in Green Bay, and providing us a different spin or a different lens on looking at this pandemic and how it's affecting players. And I know I wish you nothing but the best, Courtney, in your journey to becoming a NFL sports agent. For Jeremy and Justice and our lost colleague, Robert, who we lost earlier, I'm Roland Rainey. It has been great having you all with us today. We will see you as we celebrate episode 10 next week here on the Extra Point. Have a great week. Take care.